Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, July 22nd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 40 days, the game against Michigan in 131 days. We'll add one more thing to the countdown today. Big Ten Media Days in one day. Going to be hopping in the car with Tony Gerderman and Kevin Noon a little later on today to head to Indianapolis for what is going to be a 3-day Big Ten football extravaganza. I can't wait. There is a lot of football to talk about. New teams, new coaches, new players, new storylines, new everything in a year when pretty much everything about college football is just a little bit different. But one thing's going to be the same. Kevin will be there with me covering Big Ten Media Days this week. Kevin joins me right now. And Kevin, this is normally a 2-day event for us. And this year, going from 2 days of 7 teams each to 3 days of 6 teams each. This is going to be a lot of football, a lot of talk, a lot of everything this week.
Yeah, I'm already just thinking about all the running around we're going to have to do trying to corral players and coaches and everything else. But yes, you're right. We do get one less team a day, but it does spread out over an additional day. We'll get to see some new faces with the 4 new additions to the Big Ten who have not technically started the Big Ten. That won't be till August 2nd, but for all intents and purposes, we're here. The SEC had a more accelerated timeline for welcoming Texas and Oklahoma over there, but a lot of stories. I'm sure everybody is going to be buzzing about the new college football video game that came out this past week and rankings and how well they are, how good they are at the game, and how they should be able to just kick everybody else's butt at it. We all know that I'm the best at the game.
Well, we may get a chance to find that out in the hotel if we have any time after work is done on these days. But these are going to be very busy days, and for people who haven't been there, they now hold this, and for the last couple of years they have held this inside Lucas Oil Stadium, the home of the Indianapolis Colts and the home of the Big Ten championship game. It's the whole football field. They've got it all down there, and then you get they have interviews set up and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of walk people through what a day at Big Ten Media Days is like.
It's a day without Wi-Fi. I don't know if I can put it any better than that. The Wi-Fi is horrible. You have to go to the meal room where you may or may not get a meal because they never seem to have enough. And the Wi-Fi router seems to be there, but you have your main podium set up with the TV backdrop and everything else, and the podium of where you have a podium where the network camera is, and then you have the other cameras, including my own, where we'll be shooting it from a little further back, and rows of seats for reporters. And that's where things start. That's where the morning is. We'll get to talk to Tony Petitti at first, as the commissioner kicking things off. And then we'll go through and hear from 6 coaches. And then, once a coach is done, they generally go to a little breakout area where the reporters on that beat will go and maybe ask a couple more follow-up questions. Once we are done with that 6th coach, there's a couple minutes turnaround time, and then they start putting staggered coaches or players at breakout side podiums. And additionally to this, just to add everything else, there's a BTN set as well, kind of in the middle. So you'll see us walking through the backdrop of that set plenty of times. I try to wave once or twice and probably get yelled at for doing that. But the worst situation possible is your coach is 6th, and then your players are 1st. Because that means you have no shot at getting anything turned from your coach. You have no shot at lunch. And then you're racing to get everything into position to get your players. So I'm fully expecting that to be the case because why? Why not?
That has been how it works out a lot of times for Ohio State. And they do seem to stagger Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State and Michigan have always been, when it was a 2-day event, on opposite days because those are the 2 biggest brand names in the conference. This year, Ohio State is on the first day. Michigan is on the 3rd day. So there's going to be... They're trying to keep everyone there for the full 3 days, and they have successfully managed to do that with us every year. So that's sort of the big picture stuff. As far as what you get to see on Big Ten Network, you'll see the coaches in the front of in front of their big screen for about 15 minutes or so in the morning. Generally, that's a very small portion of what actually happens during media days, because then those coaches will, as Kevin said, have a little breakout with the local media, but then also have about 45 minutes at a separate podium that is not usually streamed, not usually on Big Ten Network. And so you'll get 45 minutes or so with coaches, 45 minutes with 3 different players from each Big Ten school. So a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with those guys. It's a great time to ask questions that you don't normally have a chance to ask in other settings. Once the season starts, you can't ask Ryan Day necessarily as many big picture questions. So it's a good time to do some of that. And so we will be doing all of that. I think, Kevin, this is a year where I was going to ask, which coach are you most interested or player are you most interested in talking to? Because, boy, it feels like there are so many good options. I've never talked to Lincoln Riley before. I've never talked to Dan Lanning before. I've never talked to Jed Fish before. I have been in a Sharon Moore press conference, but I haven't asked him a question before. I mean, then you've got all your usual, Ryan Day and James Franklin. I mean, there are so many different guys. What does Kirk Ferentz think of his new offensive coordinator? I mean, where do you even begin? Like, what are you most interested in asking about or finding out about this week?
I think I'm most interested in talking to Dan Lanning, and I'm interested in talking to Oregon just because of Ohio State going and playing at Oregon this year. The fact that Ohio State and Oregon, in theory, could play 3 times. There's a lot of interest in hearing from Lincoln Riley, but I think SC is going to be down a little bit this year, at least compared to where Oregon may be. So getting an idea on that. We've already heard out of SEC media days kind of references coming out about, Kirby Smart talking about wishing he had some of that Oregon NIL money, obviously referring to Phil Knight of Nike. I'd like to kind of dovetail off of that a little bit. I mean, obviously, Dan Lanning wouldn't be able to come out and speak in specifics about recruits, but Oregon coming into the state of Ohio, recruiting very well. The question being brought up if there's a huge NIL play. I mean, it's no secret that Phil Knight is getting up there in years and is really kind of pushing his chips into the center of the table at this point. So I think that is where my number one interest is in terms of non-Ohio State specific, personnel type of questions.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. I'm sure there will be a lot of conversations around potential expansion for the Big Ten. Are they going to add Florida State? Are they going to add Clemson? We did a show on that last week with Tony Gerdeman. This is one of these times when you don't necessarily get the answers to questions, but you at least can ask them, and you see what the answer is, and whether the answer is truthful or not. Well, you at least get an answer. The guy who I think is maybe the most underrated member of Big Ten Media Days is Bill Carollo, who is the Big Ten's director of officiating. Every year, there's about 4 or 5 people around Bill Carollo, and there's 40 people around Ryan Day, who are other big name head coaches, and it's always Tony Gerdeman and me and just a couple other people. But I always get maybe the most out of talking to Bill, because he will give you honest, straight answers, and he will give you more detail than you could possibly. You get a full year worth of detail out of him in his 45 minutes. Talk to. I think you have joined us, Tony and I, for some of our one-on-one time with TV executives as well, trying to get some inside info on the conference TV deals and how the selection process works and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of, beyond just the players and the coaches, there's a lot of other interesting stuff there as well. So we have all that coming up this week at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Let me just tell you right now, you are going to want to make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. You are going to want to make sure you hit that bell. And if you hit the bell, go ahead. Even if you think I know I've done it, go ahead and do it again. Make sure it is really on there, because this is going to be a week when we are going to have a ton of content, lots of different types of content for you as well. You want to watch the full press conference? That's fine. You want to watch shorter clips? Well, that's fine. We'll probably have some of that for you too. You want to watch some interviews? We'll probably have some one-on-one kind of interviews for you there as well. That is all coming up this week. youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And of course, at BuckeyeHuddle.com, that's where we'll be doing. We'll be putting a ton of our content there on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That is member exclusive there. If not signed up, well, this would be a great time to do it, because this is going to be a very, very busy, very, very interesting week in Indianapolis for us to talk to a ton of people, gain a ton of information on the Buckeyes, on the rest of the Big Ten, and perhaps on the college football world on the whole. So we hope to see you there at BuckeyeHuddle.com and as well at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow from Indianapolis.